All right, settle in everyone, because today's deep dive, well, it unpacks a vision of global finance that's really quite unconventional. It definitely challenges how we usually think about economic power.
It really does. We're looking at some pretty dramatic claims, talk of a secret key, even a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, referring to a cryptocurrency called Pi. One source we're digging into suggests Pi could be, believe it or not, America's ultimate tool for total financial control. Wild stuff.
And it's important to know where this is coming from. The core is a YouTube video, but that video is analyzing a very detailed article.
Right, an article by someone described as a tech veteran.
Yeah, claims over 25 years in software, broadcasting, servers, you name it. And interestingly, also holds a KYC certification. So you've got this deeply technical background behind a highly speculative financial vision.
Okay, so our mission today isn't to say if this is right or wrong. Let's be clear on that.
Absolutely not.
We're here to explore the specific, really bold predictions laid out in this article. We want to understand the viewpoint, dissect the arguments impartially, help you get well-informed on what's, frankly, a pretty unique perspective out there.
Exactly. The core question we're sort of wrestling with is, if a vision like this were to happen, how fundamentally would it reshape money, global power, everything?
Let's dive in then. The article starts with this core idea, the new dollar vision.
Right.
It kicks off saying the new dollar won't be paper. Instead, and this is the quote, it will look like Pi.
And it doesn't stop there. It calls Pi the ultimate off-balance sheet asset.
Designed for what it terms a quiet invasion of 240 countries via utility. That phrasing alone, quiet invasion.
It's striking. The idea isn't just about creating another digital coin. The source is proposing a kind of stealth financial takeover.
Using utility practical use as the vehicle for dominance rather than old-school military or political pressure.
Exactly. And the article tries to ground this by linking it to real-world legislative moves in the U.S.
Okay, how so?
Well, it argues the U.S. isn't just fiddling with stablecoin regulations. It suggests things like the Genesis Act, the Clarity for Payment Stablecoin Act. These aren't just rules. The article frames them as foundational anchors for a massive paradigm shift, putting the U.S. right at the center of a completely new digital financial system.
So legislative groundwork is being laid, according to this view, for something much bigger than just regulation.
That's the argument. And then it points the finger directly at Pi Network,
calling it the strongest weapon in this silent invasion.
It doesn't hold back.
Okay, but how? How could a cryptocurrency, even one focused on utility, become a weapon in a silent invasion? What's the mechanism described? It seems like a leap from, say, traditional geopolitics.
Well, the author's argument hinges on its nature. It's decentralized, it's distributed globally, and critically, its value is meant to come from use, not just speculation. So the idea is you get widespread organic adoption across the world, millions of people just using it. That builds a network effect so powerful it can essentially sidestep the traditional banks, the governments, the old financial controls.
So the battlefield shifts in this view from national treasuries to individual phones and businesses.
That's the core idea presented, yeah. It fundamentally changes where financial power resides.
Fascinating, if incredibly speculative. So if Pi is the supposed weapon, who's wielding it and why? The article then gets into the section it calls Trump's grand strategy.
And this is where it gets even more ambitious, perhaps.
It connects Pi to tackling the U.S. national debt, which is quite a claim.
A massive claim. It predicts the Pi network could serve as a kind of hidden infrastructure.
Hidden infrastructure.
Specifically designed, it argues, to absorb trillions, literally trillions of dollars in U.S. national debt.
Okay, stop there. Trillions in debt absorbed by a crypto network.
Yeah.
That sounds like financial alchemy, as you put it earlier.
It does. The proposed mechanism isn't like paying it off directly. It suggests using Pi-backed digital access programs.
What does that mean, digital access programs?
The article is a bit vague, but you could imagine systems where people use Pi to access certain services, maybe get digital credit, participate in this Pi-based economy.
Right.
And as this Pi economy grows globally, driven by utility, it essentially creates a new value system. This system, the argument goes, could expand to the point where it effectively absorbs or makes the old debt less relevant.
So it's not paying the debt down dollar for dollar, but creating a parallel system that grows so large the debt becomes manageable within it, or maybe just less significant.
Something like that. It's about expanding a dollar-like stable economy through Pi's utility layer globally. shifting the burden almost invisibly through adoption.
Which leads to another radical claim in the article.
Yeah, that traditional paper currencies could just become old, irrelevant.
Not necessarily disappearing, but just not what people use for real value. With Pi's price becoming the default because its value is baked into everyday utility.
The strategic advantage proposed here for the U.S. is huge.
How so?
It suggests the U.S. could gain control over value at the edge, meaning where transactions actually happen globally without printing more dollars, without raising interest rates, without the usual messy interventions.
Bypassing the entire traditional financial toolkit.
That's the picture painted, yes. A completely different way to project power.
Okay, so if this is the grand strategy,
Yeah.
who are the foot soldiers? Who makes this happen on the ground?
The article gives a critical role to the individual Pi users, the pioneers they're called.
Right, the people mining on their phones.
Exactly. Once they go through KYC, identity
It's
verification.
standard stuff in finance now.
Right. They become, according to the article, first-generation access points and even small reserve nodes.
Reserve nodes, what does that imply?
It suggests their peer-to-peer transactions, just buying and selling things with Pi, aren't just simple exchanges. They function as a utility reserve flow.
Yeah.
Each transaction, big or small, contributes to the overall global value based on the network's total activity. So pioneers aren't just users. They're actively supporting and distributing this new kind of financial system.
So the everyday user becomes a tiny part of the reserve infrastructure.
That's the concept presented. But it's not just individuals. The article brings in businesses, too.
Ah, the KYB entities. Know your business right.
Correct. Verified businesses, financial institutions, they're positioned as liquidity anchors.
Anchors within something called Pnexus. What's that?
Pnexus is described as the underlying infrastructure, the tech backbone.
And these KYB entities, these businesses, what do they do as anchors?
Several key things, according to the source. They act as on-off ramps, places to swap regular money for Pi and back again.
Essential for any crypto ecosystem.
Absolutely. They're also envisioned to offer Pi loans using smart collateral.
So, lending Pi, secured by digital assets, managed automatically by code.
Precisely. And they'd act as gateway contracts for real-world trade, even physical infrastructure projects, linking the digital Pi economy to tangible goods and services.
And Pnexus, this underlying system, it's described pretty futuristically. AI and quantum hybrid infrastructure.
Right.
What does that mean in practical terms, according to the article?
Well, think of it as the super smart automated engine running everything behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The article portrays it as capable of assessing risk instantly, executing really complex smart contracts without needing a person to approve, distributing liquidity where it's needed across the network.
All automatically. No central bank pulling levers.
That's the vision. Decentralized management of these complex financial flows. This is what the article calls protocol-driven monetary engineering.
Right. That phrase again, it's not policy decided in meetings, but rules embedded in the code itself.
Exactly. Allowing the U.S. in this scenario to regain monetary dominance through the protocol, not through traditional means.
Which brings us to probably the most provocative forecast in the entire piece.
The evaporation of fiat.
Yeah, not that dollars or euros would physically vanish, but that they'd just
Right.
stop being relevant for actual economic activity. They'd evaporate functionally.
It's a startling idea. The article paints scenarios where basically everything, goods, services, your salary, credit, savings, it's all priced, booked, paid for, secured in Pi.
So if that happened, the conclusion drawn is, well, pretty stark.
It is that this strategy could let the U.S. render other national currencies irrelevant without firing a single shot or imposing sanctions.
Wow. So thinking about that, bypassing millennia of economic history, like you said, what's the most maybe surprising implication for national sovereignty that jumps out at you from reading that?
Well, it implies a nation could lose its economic autonomy almost passively, not through invasion or explicit coercion, but simply because its currency ceases to be useful to its own citizens and businesses on a global stage, its economic influence through obsolescence.
It's framed almost aesthetically by the author, isn't it? Calling it geopolitical art, an architectural scenario.
Systemic dominance through utility. Again, emphasizing it's not monetary policy in the old sense.
But this protocol-driven monetary engineering, a new playbook entirely.
A completely new playbook if this vision holds any water. But, and this is really crucial,
Yes.
we absolutely have to stress again, these are the strategic foresight and predictions from one specific source, the author of that article.
Right. This is their analysis, their speculation, not established fact.
Not at all. It's a highly speculative vision of a possible future. It's not a guarantee, not even close.
And to be fair, the article itself includes a disclaimer, doesn't it?
It does. It explicitly states actual results may differ, which is probably an understatement for claims this big, but it highlights the predictive nature.
Definitely. So we've walked through this incredibly audacious vision, a single digital network, potentially reshaping global finance, national power, the nature of currency itself.
It's a lot to take in.
So as we wrap up, the question we want to leave you, the listener, with is this. Imagine for a moment this kind of radical, protocol-driven monetary engineering did start to materialize, even partially, as described.
How might that fundamentally change your own relationship with money? The way you save, spend, think about value.
And zooming out, what could it really mean for ideas we take for granted like national sovereignty or even individual financial freedom in a world that's already so interconnected?
Something to definitely mull over.